House in Baltimore and WNST. But and watching other teams do their battle at this point. Certainly one of those teams we're going to be seeing down the line a couple weeks from now, the Houston Texans. They're headed out to L.A. to take on the Rams this weekend. Arizona again before they come here, and doing it all with the backup quarterback. But I just wanted to reach to John McClain down there at the Houston Chronicle, the longtime NFL writer and my friend, and just tip my cap for the Houston Astros effort. So, John, we'll talk some football, and I know there's a lot of that going on, but I know what an Astros fan you were. Tell me how it was for you. I mean, tears, passion, high fives. You're like a real fan on the baseball side, man.
Nestor, since I don't cover the Astros, I've never tried to hide that. I've been a fan since the first pitch in franchise history in 1962 when I was 9 years old. And to remember all those years when I'm not ashamed to admit it, as many did. They were a great team. They were a very likable team. A lot of really, really personable guys. Don't have any jerks. And so they were easy to pull for. And I think because of Hurricane Harvey, they had a lot of people pulling for them around the country. And to beat the Red Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers, that's a threesome. It doesn't get any, as far as baseball tradition, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, and I would say for the town, like what you said, I mean, the storms that came through there, you were living through it. I have cousins and family live down in your part of the world as well. And the Astros to get displaced the way they did and really go through some tough times. I mean, it was a challenging, it's probably a great book to write, right? Like when you consider that flight back from New York after what happened to them, after what happened to the bullpen up there, the old Astros would have just rolled over, right? I mean, that would have been enough, the big bad wolf for the Yankees. But this team really did persevere through all of that, including a Game 7 out in L.A.
It's funny you mentioned book. We've already got a book out. The Chronicle's got one for sale that came out, I believe, yesterday or Monday. We had a 48-page section Sunday. We're doing a commemorative magazine, and they're letting me write about my 56-year emotional roller coaster with the Astros, so that's pretty cool. I've got to have that in later today, and I'm really excited to do that and be able to contribute in some small fashion as far as the Chronicle's outstanding coverage of the Astros. And this team's mentally tough. It's built to last, Nestor. That's the thing. They've got great young players, and what we don't know, and we're not for 2 more years, is will owner Jim Crane step up and pay the kind of money it's going to take to keep this team together. They've got a really talented minor league system at all levels, and so all these guys won't be here. For instance, World Series MVP George Springer. When Springer's contract's up, I believe he'll be 30 years old, and Nolan Ryan as the most popular players in franchise history. I don't know how they can let him get away. So that's not even counting Carlos Correa and Alex Bregman later on, but Jeff Luhnow, the general manager, did a tremendous job. I got to give a shout out to Ed Wade, the previous general manager. He's the one that brought in Altuve and Springer, and people here don't talk about that, but he did. And then H.A. Hinch, I remember when they hired him, Nestor, I thought, now who is he? Didn't he get fired by somebody? I just remembered he'd gotten fired, and I thought, what in the world are they doing? And Hinch has just been tremendous. And unfortunately, for guys like John Farrell, Joe Girardi, they lose the Astros.
Dusty Baker situation in Washington, for the Astros to sort of seize the day at that point where the Yankees and the Red Sox and these other teams are going to load up again in the American League. It certainly was a nice run. Last thing on the Astros, and I'll get to the Texans and all the woes and Deshaun Watson, and I know that's what you're famous for. John McClain joining us here. He is the longtime voice of football deep in the heart of Texas, down there in Houston at the Houston Chronicle. 38 years now on the beat, even going back to my Allers. But, in all the years of baseball and deals, and we sit here in June and July, and I've been on the radio 26 years through all of these trading deadlines. You wonder what the deal is going to be that's going to change something, that's going to make you go from just a team to a team that can win the World Series. And the Verlander thing really should be applauded more than anything. I mean, he really was the difference maker there, and you don't often see that on July 31st, that a deal begets that sort of run.
Well, what was strange about it is nobody thought he was going to pitch as well as he did. He was a great guy in the dugout, great in the dressing room. I always thought it was a 2-for-1 because I'm a big fan of his now wife, who was his fiance, so it was a twofer. And he was a great teammate for them, leader. You know, he pitched in a lot of big games throughout his career. The deal was done at the last second. We had a great story in the Chronicle before one was done nationally about Luno because of the hurricane. Had to stay at his in-laws' house and make the deal on his in-laws' dining room table. And he also had a commitment to Little League he had to do, in which he was totally distracted as they tried to get this deal done. And then Verlander had to waive his no-trade clause. And he said Kate Upton played a big role in that. And, of course, that's the second best move he ever made. The first one was meeting her. And so he's very popular. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He pitched better after August 1st than he did in a couple of years. And so they've got him and Keuchel at the top of the rotation. They had Lance McCullers. Charlie Morton just pitched great in the World Series. So they've got depth, but what they've got to improve is their bullpen because their closer, Ken Giles, who was really good in regular season, he just lost it in the playoffs, so they've got to retool their bullpen.
When you say you've been a fan all these years, you're writing for the Chronicle, give me a little taste of what that feels like, because we haven't won here since 1983, as you well know. I've written now 2 books on Ravens parades here. Very, very unlikely that we would ever even get a team back here, let alone have 2 parades at this point, John. But in the case of baseball, we feel like we're a long way away from it here, and more every day I see people drift away from it, and even the notion that the Orioles can win here with Angelos. I mean, we're going on an ugly offseason here, man. Machado, Brock, Britton, Jones all up at the end of the year, as well as Duquette and Showalter. Our organization hasn't been good at that, but over the course of a lifetime, you've watched the Orioles win a whole lot, and the Astros never really were all that close, other than Bagwell, Biggio, and the 5 minutes of Jose Cruz back in 1980 against those Dodgers in that NLCS that I remember so well, because I got my first VCR that year, so I taped the games, John. But, you haven't had a lot to cheer about as a Houston Astros fan, as I see it on the outside, going back to Jimmy Wynn or whatever, right?
There have been 5 instances in which they had a lead and should have moved on. If you're up 3 runs in the 9th inning with Nolan Ryan on the mound against the Phillies, you think you got a pretty good chance to go to the World Series, and you blow it. And then in '86, you blow it to the Mets, and the Mets go on and beat the Red Sox.
Well, Mike Scott was cheating, though, that year. Come on, he was scuffing the baseballs.
Yeah, isn't it amazing the way they don't accuse anybody of cheating anymore? You just never, ever hear it. And then there were a couple other times when they blew leads at the end. In 1998, the best team this franchise ever had won 100 games. Randy Johnson came in. It was great, like Verlander was, but Johnson couldn't win in the playoffs over Kevin Brown and the Padres, while Verlander did. So I don't care what happens with the 3 players the Tigers got. Nobody will ever look back and regret the trade of Justin Verlander. And beating the Yankees and the Red Sox, that makes it even more special. It's not like you had to beat Seattle or Tampa, but beating 2 of the most storied franchises to get to your second World Series, actually winning your first World Series game, and then beating the Dodgers. As I mentioned, the Red Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers, you get that hat trick. That makes it even more special.
John, will they let him back into the National League after all this?
That first team do it to go to a World Series in both leagues, and people complained about it like crazy. I liked it because I wanted them to have a natural rivalry with the Rangers, and they hate each other, and that's good. And I think it's good for baseball. It's good for the fans in both of these cities. And people say, well, they play so many West Coast games, you're not going to be able to see them. Well, they played the Dodgers and the Giants and the Padres. I think it's worked out really well. Plus, Nestor, I'm an old dog who likes new things, and I do not like watching pitchers hit. I would rather watch cement dry on a driveway than watch pitchers hit. So I'm all about the DH, and that's another reason I like the American League.
He is John McClain. He is McClain _on_NFL out on Twitter. Been doing it almost 4 decades now at the Houston Chronicle, covering all things football deep in the heart of Texas and those Texans. You can follow him out at the Houston Chronicle as well. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by Al's Seafood in Essex. We've been getting steamed crabs and crab cakes there since the 1970s. Big Al is a bone marrow transplant survivor, so see him, see Chad the Crab Man there, the oldest crab house in Baltimore. Still, it's Stemmers Run and Eastern right there at the foot of 702. We'll see you at Al's Seafood down in Essex. Also, shout out to Compass Point Golf Course in Pasadena, the best place to play this fall and winter. Events, friendly folks. They got night golf. They have the big Black Friday turkey shoot going on. It is a great course close to home down in Pasadena. CompassPointGolf.com. And, of course, Robert Kennedy joining us each and every week talking some local college basketball. John McClain joining us here from the Houston Chronicle. John, I got to say this, man, how strange it must have been to be celebrating, crying, tears in your eyes, winning a game late into the night in L.A., and then the next day you wake up and you think, wow, man, the Texans might even make the playoffs here, and look, they got this kid at quarterback, and then that happens. I mean, what a strange couple of days for the history of Houston sports and a time and a place, right?
Seesaw of emotions, the euphoria of the Astros, the devastation of Watson. The Texans had lost 41-38 at Seattle. Watson threw for 402 yards, 4 touchdowns. They had 509 yards, and afterward Richard Sherman said it was the best any quarterback had ever played against them. And so I thought after that game, the Texans are capable of beating any team, home or road. And that includes the Rams on the road, Steelers in Houston because of Watson. They lost J.J. Watt, lost Whitney Merciless. They don't have all kind of players who were on the defense last year, but because of Watson, they had averaged in their previous 6 games 39 points a game. And since Watson had been the starter, 34 points a game. So they were exciting. They're throwing the ball down the field, offensive line is playing as well as it can play, and then people were so excited because they never had a quarterback like that. In the past, every loss was so hard to take because it was, if we only had a quarterback, and now the losses were easier to stomach. And what's so strange about it, Nestor, is he got hurt in practice. They have these 3 pristine practice fields across from NRG Stadium. I don't believe I can remember a player ever getting hurt. He tossed the ball to a back, bounced twice, and then his right knee buckled. And it's weird, you know how they want the swelling to go down before they operate. No swelling. He's walking through the dressing room Friday, and you're like, did I dream that? He's at the game Sunday. He's in the dressing room, walked as a freshman. He blew out his left one, came back the next year and went to the national title game. So they expect him to come back 100%. But when he does come back, they will have used free agency in the draft to improve on both sides of the ball. And too bad we can't fast forward to training camp.
Of all the places where there's been knees and problems in McNair and the team taking the knee in Seattle at the aforementioned game, you've been covering this league a long time and seen a lot of things. The Kaepernick thing, there's never been a story like this, right? And clearly this kid's sitting out there without a job, and the Texans and several teams. I saw Brett Hundley play the other night. You know, we're going to see the next 2 weeks here, John, the Green Bay Packers with this Hundley kid. You guys are going to come in here in 2 weeks with Tom Savage or whoever the quarterback is at that point. It really is an incredible story around the league that this kid's being blackballed, and this thing's going to wind up, as Andrew Brand always says, there will be lawyers before all this is over with, right?
Well, there's going to be lawyers, but to prove blackball, you got to prove that they got together and said we're not going to sign him. I don't think they did that. I don't think any owner wants the distraction of Colin Kaepernick. And also your fans, sponsors, I know here we're in a Republican state, very conservative. When the players knelt, the only time they've ever knelt in Seattle, I was bombarded with emails, and not just from fans, but people who invest in teams, advertising and stuff. And so I can imagine what happened with the Texans. And the longer Colin Kaepernick stays out, the greater player he becomes, because people are acting like he was some great player. Fact is, he is better than a lot of backups in the NFL. But if you sign him and he can't play anymore, and you cut him, think about how hard that would be. So I think the legend of Colin Kaepernick as an NFL quarterback grows the longer he stays out, the more teams that bypass him.
Goodell in trouble here, John? With Jerry Jones. I mean, you really know the ins and outs and the business side of this as well as anyone. I respect your opinion on this. I don't know that it's a witch hunt on Goodell, but he's been tasked with a pretty difficult job to be quite. I mean, I know he makes a lot of money, but that's been a very, very hot seat to be in amongst a bunch of right-wing owners who've all contributed to Trump when Trump's raining down on the league, and that's probably not the side of the politics that Goodell falls on.
It's also very interesting that when Paul Tagliabue, the reason Roger Goodell's not popular is because he has suspended players. Paul Tagliabue was a lawyer. He wouldn't do it unless they were convicted in court. Most of them bought off the victims, where Goodell said, we're not going to wait. We're going to investigate them and we're going to suspend them. And it's only a small portion of the NFL that is mad at Goodell because he suspends players. I would like to see an owner want to get rid of him who he didn't do anything to the team. Jerry Jones has started at least the last 2 seasons with multiple players suspended. And, of course, Jerry's acting out for Jerry. And I don't know that he'll have enough to get Goodell out, but I know you make a lot of money, but it is a thankless job, and I'll bet you they get him redone. I've read, Nestor, that the problem is not getting him back, is agreeing to the terms that his agent wants. And maybe they're asking him to roll back some money. I don't know, but I can't think of anybody right now that I'd say, well, that guy'd do a better job than Roger Goodell, because let's face it, no, despite all the controversy, these guys are multi-billionaires and their franchises just continue to grow. And I think the reason ratings are down is because you don't see Aaron Rodgers. Who wants to watch the Packers now? Odell Beckham Jr., J.J. Watt, Deshaun Watson. You're watching Drew Stanton instead of Carson Palmer. Derek Carr was out for a while. There's
Andrew
nothing
Luck.
you can do about it. Andrew Luck,
sure,
gone for the year. There are some really, really bad games out there, and I know I wouldn't watch them.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, we might have a bad one here 2 weeks from now, but you're going to have to watch it. I hope to see you when you come into town. We'll take you out, feed you up right, and treat you right here on a Thanksgiving weekend. I'll tell you what, John, I'll make a deal with you. Come here Thanksgiving weekend, I won't feed you turkey. How about that? We'll find something better than that.
Nestor, thank you very much.
We'll see you soon. John McClain, he is McClain on NFL, out on Twitter. 38 years doing it at the Houston Chronicle. He can also be heard on Sports Radio 610 at Houston, as well as 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. I didn't even talk any Titans with him. He was the longtime chronicler of all things Allers when Bud Adams picked the team up and moved it to Tennessee. Always great to have John on and talking some baseball and some Astros as well. It is bye week around here. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world to listen when you want, where you want, how you want. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. They always have the lunk alarm there, and they're always judgment-free. Free training, and there's one right around the corner from you. If you need some inspiration, go to Planet of Triumphs for that. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If there's any breaking news at all during this bye week, you're going to get it first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colazos will be here on Thursday, driving you home with the SSV. That's the Sunday Sports Voice, now heard on Thursdays from 3 until 5. Hold next Tuesday night. We're bringing C.J. Mosley out. We're going to be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. All of it brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Choose the right lender. That's Carl Delmont and our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. You can learn more at Freedmont.com if you're buying, selling, or just need some really good advice from some good folks. Trust the folks at Freedmont Mortgage. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.